Walt, and this is Delta Astrophotography. Back in the summer of 2020, I decided to level up my Milky Way photography game, and I got my very first star tracker, the Ioptron Skyguider Pro. Now let's fast forward a few months to November of 2020, so 5 years ago. The Milky Way core season has come to an end, and like I'd been doing in the previous years, I was about to just put the camera up on a shelf and wait till springtime, but I decided to keep going, and I really wanted to take my first deep sky photograph with this star tracker. And so I chose the Andromeda Galaxy as my first target, and I made a YouTube video about it, and it's my very first YouTube video. So to celebrate 5 years of this madness, I decided I want to try to go back to my roots and recreate that photo with the same or similar equipment, just to see if I can still do it, but also to see if I can do it better. Can I pull this off? Find out in today's episode of
Space Madness.
So instead of just remaking my first video, I'm gonna try to take things up a notch a little bit. I wanna outdo myself, but with mostly the same equipment. Now, if you're new to this channel, new to this hobby, I highly recommend watching my very first video. You can see it up here, in the description below, and at the end of the video in a little end tag thing. And for those of you who don't wanna watch all that, I'll go ahead and catch you up to speed just a little bit. For the camera, I'm just gonna use this old Canon Rebel T5i. And for the lens, this is a 75 to 300 millimeter kit lens. This lens comes with a lot of these old cameras, and I think at the time when I bought it over 5 years ago, it was probably around 70 bucks. I'm gonna be attaching my camera to this star tracker. It's the Ioptron Skyguider Pro. If you're new to the hobby, what this is gonna do, I'm gonna align it with the North Celestial Pole, basically Polaris. Attach my camera to it. When I turn it on, it's gonna rotate my camera along with the sky, basically freezing the sky, allowing me to do longer exposures. I'm gonna be using this 75 to 300 millimeter kit lens at 300 millimeters tonight. And without a star tracker, the most I'm gonna be able to get is 1 second without the stars starting to trail. And I'm wanting to go a lot longer than that. So last time I attached the camera to the star tracker using this little adapter here that came with the star tracker and screwing a ball head onto the top. And it just clips right onto the tracker. The camera attaches to the ball head like so. Then I can point the camera anywhere in the sky I want. Just like this. Tighten it all down. And if I've aligned this star tracker properly with the North Celestial Pole, once I turn it on, it'll start rotating my camera just like this, along with the stars, freezing them in place, giving me, well, last time it gave me 60-second exposures, but I'm gonna try to beat that. This time, I'm gonna use a technique called Autoguiding. This is an autoguider right here. It's basically a little mini telescope and a little mini camera. This is gonna sit on top of my main camera, and it's going to look at a star, take pictures of it, and kind of lock onto that star and send pulses to my star tracker to keep it locked onto that star, increasing my exposure time. Hopefully I can even double my exposure time. The way I'm going to attach it to my camera, I bought one of these dovetail cold shoe mounts right here. It's just gonna go right into the cold shoe mount where my flash would normally go. I'm gonna tighten it down as tight as possible so it doesn't jiggle. You don't want your autoguider jiggling when it's trying to lock onto a star. And the little guide scope has a Vixen dovetail shoe right down here. And that just slides right into here just like so. Tighten it down. And now we have a setup that can do auto guiding. Another thing you might notice is there's a wire hanging out from the bottom of my camera. This is a dummy battery up in here. This old T5i, the batteries are so old, they don't even last an hour anymore, and I wanna try to shoot for at least 2 to 3 hours. So I've installed a dummy battery And it can plug into a wall, a power outlet, a battery bank with this kind of plug. This will keep me going all night. In order for this auto guiding setup to work, the guide camera needs to be attached to a Windows laptop with a USB cable running a free program called PHD2. So if you don't have a laptop lying around, this might not be the best option for you, but at least the software is free. Another problem with this auto guiding setup is it adds a good bit of weight to my camera, so we're not just going to be able to use the little ball head setup like I've been using before. We're going to have to use a counterweight system. Oh, great. Means I gotta go find it and dig it out. Let's look in the bucket of spacecraft that I hadn't used in a really long time. We got the counterweight for the SkyGuider Pro Star Tracker. The declination bracket that mounts to the Star Tracker that I add the counterweight to. This is gonna come in handy. Got an ST4 cable. I'll explain what this does in just a minute. This is a mini USB cable, not to be confused with micro USB cable. This is much older than that. I probably haven't seen one of these at Walmart in 10 years. This is for connecting cameras like old DSLRs to laptops. Another important thing to mention is I'm going to be using a technique called stacking. I'm not just going to take one single photo of Andromeda. I'm going to take several, combine them all in stacking software, and that's going to bring out more detail and improve my signal to noise ratio. But the thing is, I'm using a zoom lens. And we always, when we use zoom lenses, we run the risk of the zoom potentially changing throughout the shoot. I might start at 300 millimeters and then it might turn a little bit throughout the night and end up at 280 millimeters. And those will not stack properly and it'll ruin the entire night's worth of imaging. So I'm gonna get out my favorite astrophotography tool. Duct tape. No, I'm gonna weld this son of a bitch to 300 millimeters permanently. Actually, I do something that people always tell me not to do, but I don't care. I just tape down where it zooms. I just tape that down with a little black electrical tape. I mean, yeah, it might leave a little residue, but it's black, it looks good, and I pretty much leave it on here permanently because experiments like this are the only time I ever use this lens in the first place. I'm also going to be spending several nights photographing Andromeda with this rig right here. This is a 275 millimeter telescope. This is an EQ6R Pro computerized go-to mount, a ZWO ASI 294 MC Pro cooled astronomy camera. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this rig. It's really just about seeing how the Star Tracker and camera lens compares to something I've been using that's a little more, I don't know, complicated and modern. Also with this rig, I'm going to be more focused on this little black box right here. This is called the TubeTech Stella Vita. It's a little mini computer that's going to control all of my rig. And I bought this, I'm reviewing it right now, so I'm going to save that for that review. So this is how we're going to set things up. As you can see, I've got this laptop stand, which I really like. I think I like it better than a table. And right here, the mouse tray or mouse holder. Instead of a mouse, I've got my power strip so I can keep my electricity very close to this. And you'll see why I need electricity in just a second. So I've got the Star Tracker mounted on top of a heavy-duty video tripod. It might be a little overkill, but like that's really all I have. You know, as long as it's not on some flimsy tripod, the last thing I want is the weight of this thing to knock the tripod over and everything falls and explodes. Now, once the sun goes down, I'm gonna look through this polar scope, find the North Star, and make adjustments on the base here to try to get the North Star positioned exactly where it's supposed to be in this little target on the inside. Once that's done, I can add the counterweight kit. Now, the reason I don't add this before I polar align is because when you polar align, you actually have to have this piece upside down. When it's upside down like this, there's a light on the inside of the polar scope and I can actually see the reticle. once I'm done polar aligning, I have to flip it upside down. This is a design flaw, obviously. Flip it upside down. That turns the light off, but then I can add the counterweight kit. Now the sheer weight of this thing is gonna throw my polar alignment off. So at this point, I'll probably have to repolar align, but there's not gonna be any kind of light in the polar scope, so I'll have to have a red headlamp that'll shine right through this hole where I can actually see the target and then repolar align with all this new weight. The initial polar alignment was just to get me close, I guess. Now I can add my camera. Just fits right on there, just like that. And I don't know if you can see this, but I've got a dew heater right on the front of my lens, a dew heater strap. It's the USB kind. So I'm gonna plug it into the USB power outlet on the power strip down here. If you're shooting out in the wild, you don't have power strips or things like that, these plug into battery packs, USB battery packs of any kind. So they're pretty easy to use. At this point, I need to make sure that my setup is properly balanced. So I'm gonna loosen the clutch on this star tracker. And look, it wants to fall back forward, which means there's too much weight on the counterweight side. I have to take the counterweight, slide it towards the camera until it sits still. There, it's not falling in any direction now. You can go ahead, tighten that down. There we go. Now I'm gonna loosen the declination clutch here. I'm gonna point my camera up to where Andromeda is gonna be tonight, which is about right there, and let go. As you can see, it's falling forward when I let go. So I'm going to pull the camera backwards towards me in this dovetail saddle. Aim back up at Andromeda, still falling forward a little bit. So let's pull the camera backwards towards me in the saddle some more. And look at that. All the clutches are loose and it's not falling in any direction. That's good, that's balanced. And when it's nice and balanced like that, it takes a lot of stress and strain off the motors in this star tracker and probably will get me a lot more accurate guiding and tracking. I will now take the ST4 cable, which looks like a old phone or Ethernet cable. I'm gonna plug one end into the back of the guider, the guide camera, and the other end into the back of the star tracker into the guide port. Okay, in the past, when I've talked about doing this, people jumped all over me in the comments saying this is outdated technology and to take this ST4 cable and set it on fire. Yes, I've seen that Dylan O'Donnell video too, but guys, this is an old star tracker. It does not have USB guiding technology. The only thing you can use is an ST port. Next thing I'm gonna do is take this USB cable, plug it into the back of the guide camera, and then into the laptop. Now that's just about it. I just gotta think about how I'm gonna control the camera tonight. Do I wanna do it with a remote that I hold in my hand and I can stick to the leg of the tripod, or do I wanna control the camera using the laptop? If I do that, I'll just take a USB cable, connect it to the camera, the other end into the laptop. And from there, I can control all my camera settings and take photos using software like Nina or Astrophotography tool. Ultimately, I ended up going with the laptop over the intervalometer remote control because I figured I'm already using the laptop to run my auto-guiding software. Might as well use it to control the camera as well. So I chose Nina. It's a free piece of software. It's very complex and it can be hard to use, but I just use it for camera control and that's it. So if you want to follow along and get that software, it's completely free. Now that I've got it all set up to show you how it works, I got to tear it all back down because I got to get this stuff off here to start my polar align routine once the sun goes down. But between now and then, I can at least be charging the star tracker because I honestly don't know when the last time I used this thing is. So I'm just going to take this little micro USB cable, plug it in right here, and into my power strip I've got under my laptop. There we go. And that's about it for setup, so I'll see you when it gets dark. Okay, it's night. It's officially time to start polar aligning. So I've got the app pulled up that shows me where Polaris is supposed to be. I'm gonna show it to you right now. That little white dot right around there, that's where Polaris is supposed to be in my polar scope. So I'm gonna get to work trying to make that happen. Okay, here we go for polar alignment. I actually have to use a socket wrench these days because the screws and knobs that I used to use for polar alignment, so old, they're kind of, they get stuck. So I have to use tools now. Here we go. Wow, that took way longer than I remember it ever used to taking. And I guess it's because I'm rusty, but it's just a heads up. If you're getting into this hobby and you're going the star tracker route, yeah, it's cheaper, but oh my gosh, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. So just keep that in mind. Also, in the end, I think it makes you a more badass astrophotographer if you start out like this. Everything's so manual, so difficult. I don't know, you have to really, really work for your image. I think it's kind of cool. And now I have to repolar align, so I've got to take this off, shine it through this hole. There we go. It's definitely a good bit off since I put all this weight on. After I finished polar aligning, I aimed my camera at a bright star, turned on my live view screen, and just turned the focus wheel until the star was as small of a pinpoint as possible, and that's how I knew that I was in perfect focus. Whew! Now that I've got everything polar aligned and focused, it's time to start pointing up at where I think Andromeda is. I can't quite see it with the naked eye, and start taking test shots and see if I can get it in frame. This is going to take a while. My camera settings yay, are about ISO 800. I think the max aperture this thing can go at 300 millimeters, which is I think f6.3 or something like that. And for the test shots, I'm just gonna do like 5-second exposures. Like all I need to see is the core of Andromeda. I don't need to max everything out. So, all right. Here we go. We're gonna find Andromeda tonight. I'm not gonna give up. I think I just heard a cat get killed in the distance. We might give up. 1 hour later. Holy crap, that was hard, but I got it. I'm really happy. It's almost perfectly centered. All right, so now we're gonna start the auto guiding. So I'm gonna go in here in my laptop, pull up PhD2. We need to go into Guide, Connect Equipment. Make sure our camera is selected and the mount needs to be on camera. For a star tracker, it's on camera. If you're using a go-to mount, you're gonna find your mount in that list, but for a star tracker, it's just called on camera. Make sure our camera and our mount are selected and click Connect. I've already done that, so I'm gonna close that out. We need to go into the brain icon. And from here, let's go to the Algorithms tab and make sure Deck Guide Mode is set to off. Star trackers do not track in declination, only right ascension. And hit OK. We can close out of that and click the loop button. And I've got it set to take 3-second exposures. And as we can see, there are some stars in there. Looking good. Let's go up to Tools, Auto Select Star. And let's go down here and hit the green target button to start our guiding. All right, the guiding is done. We're gonna wanna ignore the red line on the graph because that does not work when you're just using a star tracker. We're really paying attention to this blue line, and you know, a lot of people when they're guiding, they really over obsess about this guiding graph. We're doing a basic star tracker, guys. We're not gonna obsess over it. As long as the lines on the graph stay between 3 and -3. I think I'm gonna be happy with this. So let's head on over to Nina. Let's go to our equipment tab and make sure, we've already got our camera connected. We're gonna make sure we go down to Guider and make sure PHD2 is selected as our guider and hit connect. I've already done that. So now we're gonna go to sequencer. This is the easy part, or the fun part. Time, I set it to 120 seconds because that's 2-minute exposures. I wanna take 2-minute exposures, and gain over here on the right, that's my ISO of my camera. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure it is at 800. The aperture on my camera is the lowest it can go for 300 millimeters, which is, once again, I think like f6.3 or something. And how many do we want to take? I'm gonna be bold and go with 180. I doubt I'm gonna make it that long, but let's just see what happens. 180. Okay, I think we're good. Last thing, I'm gonna go to options, go over here to imaging, and where it says image file path, I just need to make sure it's saving in the right place. And yes, indeed, it's saved to my D drive in a folder called Andromeda. So we're good to go. I'm gonna go back to sequencer. I'm just gonna go ahead and hit play. It's imaging now. Oh my God. It's been so long since I've started an image with just the star tracker and a camera and a lens. I really hope this turns out okay. If not, it doesn't matter. I've got the big rig running over there right now, so it's gonna be a fun experiment no matter what. All right, y'all, my first image is done, and let's look at it. We're gonna go to the imaging tab, make sure image is selected. That's it. That's our first Andromeda photo. Wow. Looks like we've got a weird dark blob here, so I might have to take flat frames tonight, but still, I think that's incredible. Y'all, that's with a cheap ass camera and lens. I'm so excited. Okay, I'm gonna go tend to the big rig and just let this run for a couple hours. And now, let's see how long that takes on my big rig. I'm just gonna go ahead and click my history here. M31, the Andromeda Galaxy, and I just tapped it, and here we go. Man, I've gotten lazy. This is great. And there we go, that was effortless. I'm so excited about this new Stella Vita that I'm trying out. That's gonna be a whole nother video though, and I can't wait for you guys to check this thing out. I'm in love with it. Of course, it's got some problems, but like I said, that's gonna be a whole nother video. After my imaging session was done, I went back outside in the middle of the night, put my lens cap back on the camera, made sure all my camera settings were still the exact same, and took 30 more photographs with the lens cap on. So when I go to stack all these images, I'm gonna include these dark frames that had the lens cap on, and they're gonna help pull out extra noise like hot pixels. I didn't film any of this because honestly, it would probably double the length of this video to talk about why I take calibration frames, so I made a video a couple of months ago about taking dark frames, and you can see it right up here or in the description below. Out of around 180 photos that I took of Andromeda the other night, only about half of them did not have star trail, so I had to throw away a lot of images, but I'm not surprised. I actually kind of forgot how many images I used to throw away when the star tracker was the only kind of mount I had. But I still ended up with 2 to 3 hours worth of data, and that's way more than I got back in 2020. So, to end this video, I'm gonna show you the original photo I took in 2020, my first deep sky photo, just the way I processed it way back then. Then I'm gonna show you my most recent one with the star tracker. And then finally, the one that I took with my telescope and the Stella Vita that I'm reviewing. If you guys made it this far into the video, you are truly awesome. Thank you so much for watching, and long-term subscribers, sorry I've been absent for so long, but it's just been a bad year. But October was a great month, and hopefully we're gonna be getting back in gear soon. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. So, as always, stay spacey, clear skies, watch out for snakes, and I'll see you in the next one.